Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This presentation will be entitled, Does Your Vote Count? There will be a brief history of vote fraud in our cities in this country, including a first-hand personal experience, investigating a bad election, the truth that's still going on, and in a massive scale, and the solutions, some solutions to ensure the integrity of the franchise. First of all, before we go into the history, I don't vote. I am doing this for the benefit of those who unfortunately still believe in government. As George Carlin said, even in a fake democracy, republic actually, the people ought to get what they want once in a while. So even in a fraud, every once in a while we ought to get a bone thrown to us. The elections are not that, because they're not good. The United States has a long history of election problems, vote fraud, voter intimidation. Unfortunately, not much has changed. Some of the methods have actually remained the same for 200 plus years. But of course, with computers, there are other ways to get this nefarious work done on and after and even before Election Day. They don't do cooping anymore. They used to kidnap people and get them drunk and beat them and intimidate them and threaten them, and they would make them go vote for their party candidate of choice multiple times, 10, 15, 20 times, in different disguises and all this. It was wild back then, the 1700s, 1800s. The idea of paying people, that hasn't gone away. They give them alcohol, they give them cigarettes, it goes on all the time still. After the beginning of the 20th century, the more Neanderthal methods had become less common. Police were watching some polls. They had things a little bit more under control. Al Capone and his gang still would do voting line raids where they would go in and force people or threaten people to vote, I'm sure, Democratic. I know he wasn't a Republican. Our elections still are far from being secure and without fraud. It's a known fact that Kennedy versus Nixon was stolen by the Democrats in Texas and Illinois with the help of the mafia. Here's a couple more recent examples. In Minnesota in 2008, Democrat Al Franken, the former Saturday Night Live dude, defeated incumbent Republican Senator Norm Coleman by 312 votes with late discovered ballots. They came in late. A watchdog group confirmed that more than enough convicted felons voted to flip the outcome to Mr. Franken. Convicted felons aren't allowed to vote. The Democrats registered them and had them vote. In Washington State in 2004, in the election for governor, the Republican won and then won a recount and was certified. The state's Democratic Party then cuts a check for $730,000 to the Secretary of State for a third recount, or a second recount. Mystery votes surfaced, putting the Democrat up by 8 votes, then 130. Race flipped. Democrat in. Now we're going to go back 28 years to 1994. It's November 8th, 1994. Almost 28 years. It's November 8th, 1994. It's Election Day, mid-afternoon in Maryland. I'm a Republican back then. I participated. I don't anymore, but I did. I was very active. In a very Democratic state, well, we're excited because we have Bob Ehrlich, who looks like he's going to take the 2nd congressional seat that Helen Dealch Bentley has left to run in the primary for governor against Ellen Sauerbrey, who beat Bentley in the primary, and she's got a good chance of winning against this dude, Paris Glendening, right? So I've already cast my ballot. I'm hanging out at home with my great dog, hanging out, and I think somewhere around 8 o'clock I got a phone call from a buddy, Jeff. He said, you got to get up here. Bob's going to win. Ellen's going to win. Up where? The fairgrounds, Timonium Fairgrounds, Timonium State Fairgrounds, Maryland, in Maryland. Exhibition hall. Okay, all right, see you in 20 minutes. Big party. At some point, Bob Ehrlich won the 2nd congressional seat over Connie DeJulius, who happened to be my neighbor. At that point, she was my former neighbor, but she had been my neighbor out in the county, in Baltimore County. Bob Ehrlich gets announced the winner. I met him. I was able to greet him and shake his hands and tell him to go get him. Ellen was winning all night. Ellen Sauerbrey was winning all night until a large number of precincts, mostly from Baltimore City, the worst neighborhoods, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, reported their tallies very late. Again, not being able to recall exact numbers, I know that Ellen was up by a couple thousand votes, a few thousand votes, and then bam, it was swayed by a quick 8 or 10,000. It went to him being up by like 5 or 6. We were shocked, stunned, and immediately the elder people, the people older than me throughout the building, the people 2, 3 decades older than me, 4 decades older than me, were like, "Oh, here we go again, Baltimore again." But Ellen wasn't going to give up, and so within a week or so, we were assembling a team of investigators, which is what I did, along with security, attorneys, computer geeks, to start gathering, organizing, compiling evidence. Voting records are public, except for who the person voted for, and most other data, such as property tax, housing stats, homes boarded up by the city, for example, death certificates. It's all public record. I'm going to show you something right now that's really important here. This is a Baltimore City voter registration card. I've lived in Florida since 2009. I moved out of Baltimore City in 2006. I'm still registered to vote there. This is how the machine works. Okay, people move out, they don't get purged from the rolls. And this is what Barbara Jackson got scolded for by Judge Teamy, you'll see later. So, in any case, it's right here. I just got it today in the mail, yesterday in the mail. No problem. Yep, you're still registered. Yep, okay. Oh, you're in Florida now? Okay, we'll mail it to you down there. So, because you're not going to be up here until October. I gave him some bullshit story. Every time someone is still in the rolls like this, it's potentially fraudulent vote. Okay? How many more names are still in the rolls? So, we secured a building to do this investigation in Timonium, Maryland, near the fairgrounds, ironically, which was convenient for Ellen and many of her staff who lived nearby in the county. Leadership roles were chosen, attorneys were hired. John Carbone from New Jersey, an election law specialist, was hired. At this point, the only thing we know for sure is that very late that night, many votes came from these highly Democratic precincts in very bad neighborhoods. One of the biggest questions is why so late? Well, everyone else had reported hours earlier, an hour or two earlier. Everyone was done. I think it had to be like 2 hours. What's going on? Well, you're doing something nefarious. You after the polls close, you gotta do some cooking. You gotta do some work. So about a month later, we've got access to all the voting rolls from Baltimore and the 2 counties, Prince George's and Montgomery County. Several patterns have emerged, one being the fact that apparently the many boarded up homes that the city boarded up have people voting from them on election day. In some case, 5 voters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 voters from a house that's been boarded up for 5, 10 years, or a vacant lot. Obviously, these people don't live there, and maybe not even in the precinct of the city or the state. But by the time the initial lawsuit's filed, we're saying, hey man, we might have 50,000 fraudulent votes here. And yes, there were dead people also. The dead did vote. The difference, according to those who count, and they're all that matters, the people who count the votes are who matters, remember that, was supposedly 5,993. I personally counted for between 1,500 to 2,000 fraudulent votes, and we had a bunch of investigators besides me. But not many were as successful as I was. I was very aggressive. Here was my routine for about a month. I show up at this location with coffee, a bunch of film, unexposed, unused film, at least one loaded firearm with extra magazines or speed loaders or stripper clips. And yes, we were carrying rifles in our cars in these neighborhoods. My camera, notebook, etc. Teams are chosen. We have to map out the precincts where we're going to work, grab the voting records for those precincts, and head out the door with my partner or partners, usually one, sometimes 2. You see a boarded up home, you look it up on the voting records. If there's a match, if somebody voted from there, you double, triple check, make sure, then you take a clear picture. You note the frame number on the camera so you can match it up after the fact in the notes with the address and everything else, and how many voters, etc., etc. The reason for the firearms is because these neighborhoods are bad neighborhoods, okay? They don't like people that look like me cruising around, and I think you know what I mean. I'm not racist, but this is a fact. I wouldn't last down there at night for 10 seconds, okay? Daytime, they don't want me there either. So, you got white guys cruising around in decent vehicles, pretty nice vehicles. They don't know we're heavily armed, but we are. And when they found out what we were doing, that we were trying to overturn the Democrat election, yeah, we had some interesting incidents. Luckily, no one ever got hurt. There was never any physical altercations per se, but it got pretty wild. I had to give a deposition to the Deputy Attorney General of the state of Maryland at the time, Ralph Tyler, with Ellen Sauerbrey's attorney, John Carbone, at my side in downtown Baltimore at Piper and Marbury Law Firm, early morning on a Sunday. And he's a Democrat, Ralph is, and he said that my pictures of boarded up homes that had voters matching up to them wasn't really fraud. It was kind of more like an anomaly or a mistake. A Democrat-appointed judge handled the case in Annapolis, Maryland. I think you know the history or the outcome. If you don't know the history, if a Democrat-appointed judge got the case, you know what happened, right? That guy even made us make a complete new copy of all those voting records for those 3 districts in one day and gave us a 4 p.m. deadline to do it. He gave us like 6 hours to make like 700,000 copies. I had to drive to Annapolis at breakneck speed with a car full of frickin' paper. My car probably weighed an extra 1,000 pounds. And then I got there to the courthouse and I ran inside with my frickin' pistol and almost got busted because I'm running through a courthouse now with a frickin' loaded gun. Alarms are going off. Judge Teamy throws the case out for pure political reasons, but in his ruling, he excoriates Barbara Jackson, the head of the Baltimore City Election Board. His exact quote, "I am saying that the problems in Baltimore City must be immediately addressed if the citizens of this state are to have confidence in the electoral process." He cited in particular the city election administrator, Barbara Jackson, failure to manage the voter rolls in accordance with state law. Hence, I have my voter registration card. They're still doing the same thing. They're still not managing the voter rolls. Hello, Dan Cox in Maryland, the guy running for governor on the Republican side. I'm not a Republican. They can steal your election, bro. If it's close, they can steal it. Okay? So she was a bumbler, and she did it on purpose. She wasn't bumbling. She knew exactly what she was doing. He knew that in Baltimore City alone, there were still at least 3 times as many bad votes as the difference ended up being, and Ellen Sauerbrey should have been governor, and he knew it. He got ordered from above, folks, because he said he voted for her, and and I trust the man, even though he was Democrat. I trust him that he voted for Ellen Sauerbrey, but I can guarantee you the Clintons didn't want Maryland becoming a Republican governor of the state in 1994. Along with all the other hell that was breaking loose with Newt Gingrich and everybody taking over the House of Representatives. Okay? If you've been listening, you'll notice there's a very similar trend here. Al Franken, inmate votes, 08 Minnesota, Sauerbrey debacle in Maryland, 94, and the most recent and biggest of all, the Biden steal in 2020. What's the common denominator? Well, first of all, the machine's got everything in place ahead of time. They know what they're doing, and they've got these things ready. The voter roll's not being purged, right? But the work has to be done late after the polls close, hence the late night. It always seems to happen late, doesn't it? I mean, Trump went at 2, 3 o'clock, they'd stop counting. We can't keep counting? Whatever. Now, I understand that with the computers and everything, and Dominion, which of course that's apparently part of the problem, people might think the old techniques aren't used, but they are. These people go to nursing homes, homeless shelters, they bust these people in, they give them cigarettes, they give them money, they give them booze, whatever. I mean, they know it's wrong, but they think that they're doing the right thing because they think that if Republican gets in, literally, we're going to go back to slavery. And that's because they've been brainwashed and convinced the opposite of history, which is that the Democrats are the party of slavery and Jim Crow and everything else, okay? Not the Republicans. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have put more black people in jail for drugs than any other two people on the face of the earth. Never mind that. I've been in these neighborhoods during the daytime. I can't imagine being a white Republican poll watcher down there at night after the poll, till the polls close. Because guess what? It's in November. It gets dark a little early, doesn't it? It gets dark before the polls close, remember? They can never do this in a 50-50 precinct. It has to be in a 99% Democrat, and I hate to say this, but it's usually black neighborhoods in the worst parts of the cities where nobody else is going to be there late at night after from the other side watching them count or add to the count. Most of the activity seems to happen, as I said, late while they're tallying. Again, no white person in their right mind is going to be in there anywhere near there at that time. And this is not a racist comment. Solutions. Very simple. A couple of them are so simple. We have the technology that if I buy a winning Powerball ticket tomorrow down the street, within half an hour of me buying it, they're going to know where I bought it. They're not going to know who I am unless they have a video. But they're going to know where it was bought, the time it was bought, everything, because it's on a barcode. Why doesn't this happen in elections? Because if you want to commit fraud, you can't streamline it and make it efficient and make it accurate. You have to keep it a mess, the laughing stock of the world. We just had a primary in Arizona that's a CF, a total cluster F, right? Here are some fixes that would work as long as there are equal representatives from all viable parties involved. Unfortunately, we only have two, but again, I don't participate, so I don't give a shit. State-issued photo identification and voter registration card must be presented by every voter, no exceptions. If your grandma's in a nursing home and wants to vote but doesn't have a driver's license, you get her a state-issued photo ID. The idea that this is racist is insane, and that insinuates that people that are whatever darker skinned aren't smart enough or too lazy to get an ID card. That's racist in itself. To say that it's a racist thing to say, well, we have to ensure the vote is people who are voting are the people who are supposed to be voting. The ID cards are barcoded now, as you all know. All right. The record that that person voted, their vote, what time, the precinct, etc., will be barcoded also and linked to the person's ID barcode. Once it's in the database, there's no way for someone with that ID to vote again because the database will spit it out and say, oh, we already have this one. We've already got that barcode in here. Boom. I mean, get the lottery to do it. Get the freaking people that run the lottery to do it. They get a printout that says they voted with a number, their number in the order that they voted in that precinct. In other words, they were 27th that morning, whatever. And that's it. They voted this day in this election, and they were this number voter at this precinct, and with their voter registration number. That's it. All polling precincts must have, number 2, all polling precincts must have at least 2 observers or monitors from each viable party on site starting from before the polls open, a little bit before. If the facility is in a dangerous location, they must be given protection by local police or deputies. These observers must remain at the polling facility until all of the votes from that precinct are tallied and reported to the database. The reason for 2 should be obvious. People have to take breaks sometimes. All mail-in voting, except for the traditional absentee ballots used by military and people who will not be able to vote in person because of travel, will be eliminated. No mail-in voting. 0. It is rife with fraud. Absentee ballot requesters will be required to send in a clear copy of both sides of their ID with their request so the barcode can be scanned. When they send in their ballot, it will already be attached to their ID when it comes to them in the mail. The ballots will be clearly printed with boxes to fill in with black ink pen for scanning. As they are scanned, checked, and counted, there will be monitors from both parties again. After scanning the barcode will now have voter information as well as their vote. In other words, the barcode going out just had their voter information. Now it's coming back, it's been scanned, now it's got their vote. Now it's entered into the database, boom, it's done. Okay? You email them a receipt or mail them a physical receipt. These are just a few of the things we could do to ensure that our votes are counted and tracked as accurately as our lottery tickets, and that they aren't just installing whoever they want into these offices. I'm currently in the process of attempting to sound the alert in Maryland and nationally. To that end, please like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and share it with anyone who will pay attention, because there's no reason to vote if it doesn't count. You know, if the process is not secure, why are we voting in the first place? This is one of my t-shirts that I sell on my site, all in favor of gun control. You got Stalin, Hitler, Castro, and Biden. Yeah, dictators like gun control, folks. Manic Mechanic Tees, manicmechanictees.com, MANIKMEKANIK tees, TES.com. That is the website. You can get this t-shirt. I have another one on there as well. Sent anywhere in the country for $12.50. Medium, large, extra large. The other one is a F. Joe Biden t-shirt. And again, I don't vote, but it's, when they're that bad, you have to go after them. I'm sorry. There'll be more t-shirts coming. But again, this video is crucial. If you're a voter, please get it out there. Watch it, like it, subscribe, and share the video with hopefully some people that have political pull in your area that want to get this thing fixed. Y'all have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll be back with you shortly with another video. Have a good one.